This video is not about retiring on Bitcoin. It's about why you need to stop trying to retire on Bitcoin and why that's actually much, much better anyways. How much Bitcoin do you need to retire? Yeah, we see it all over the place. Everybody's going to make a YouTube video about it. It's on Reddit, it's on Twitter. Everybody's asking that question. Everyone's trying to calculate their magic number like, oh, if I just get to 0.01 Bitcoin, or if I get to zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, or if I get to one full Bitcoin, will that be enough for me to retire on? Maybe that's why you even clicked on this video and you feel slightly tricked right now, but you need to stick around because the most important thing is that asking how much Bitcoin do we need to retire is the wrong question. Okay. I think that thinking is completely backwards because, first of all, nobody does that with any other asset. Nobody's walking around asking each other how many ounces of gold they need to retire or how many shares of the S&P 500 do they need until they can escape their dead-end job. Retire on Bitcoin is the wrong mindset because it's a fiat mindset. It's fiat thinking. I think that mindset comes from the idea that people have in their heads that Bitcoin has gone up thousands and thousands of percent over the last 15 years. And yes, some people were early to Bitcoin. They became billionaires. Maybe they retired. Maybe they didn't retire. But I get it. You're jealous of them. I'm jealous of them too sometimes. But that's thinking with your little lizard part of your brain. It's like, boo-hoo, I didn't get 10,000 Bitcoin when it was virtually free. Yeah, so most of us didn't either. So suck it up. You can't go back in time, obviously, and change that. And some people today will even say this as like a criticism of Bitcoin, like, oh, Bitcoin can't even do 100x anymore. So what's the point in buying it? But that, of course, is the ultimate in high time preference fiat brain thinking, because most people's next thought after that then becomes, oh, well, instead of buying Bitcoin, I should chase a shitcoin with a $10 million market cap and see if I can catch the 20-minute pump before the rug pull happens. And so you see how we're trying to retire on Bitcoin quickly devolves into the thinking of just straight up degenerate gambling. Like, do you really think a lot of people are getting rich and retiring off of buying meme coins or shitcoin pump and dumps? I don't really think so. Or do you think most people who get sucked into that mindset actually just end up losing everything? And the only ones who benefit from that type of behavior are the ones who launched the meme coin or the ones who own the platform that it trades on. So I can hear the lizard part of your brain again saying, oh, then I guess I should go launch my own meme coin. That's not what I'm saying. That's just getting further and further and further away from anything resembling sound financial thinking or integrity, if we're being honest. And I know you've probably seen a few people on Twitter or Reddit who say that they made millions off of trading shitcoins. But of course, you and I have no proof that they're actually telling the truth. Is it much more likely that they're either lying or they're trying to shill you their next pump and dump to use you as exit liquidity? One of those two things is far more likely than the idea that they're just some genius trader who's making tens of millions of dollars and you can be the next genius trader who does it too. So you need to train your brain to ignore all that BS. And I'm about to tell you what you need to do instead. Real quick, you're watching the Sad Stacker Show, which is a Bitcoin show for people who think deeper about money. I'm your host. My name is John, aka the Sad Stacker. If you want to learn to stack smarter and grow your conviction in Bitcoin, you hit the subscribe button and you give yourself a sat on the back. So this is why the ethos of Bitcoin is honesty, integrity, and proof of work. We're not here for overnight fiat gains or high time preference pumps. For 99% of people, that is all just a recipe for disaster. And more importantly, it's just the perpetuation of late stage fiat, the system, that we hate. Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. Bitcoin is a don't get poor slowly scheme. It's the antidote to fiat, which slowly drains your life force no matter how much effort you put in. The idea of retire on Bitcoin should not be about when will Bitcoin hit $10 million. It should be about produce value and store that value in something that can't be debased. That's it. Bitcoin is not an investment. Bitcoin is money. One of the key benefits and purposes of money is optionality. You spend money when you need things, or you save money to reduce the uncertainty of the future. There is no certainty in fiat. What are interest rates going to be next quarter? How much will the money supply grow by next year? What will a house or tuition cost by the time my kids are grown up? Fiat distorts and destroys your ability to plan for the future. And yes, I can hear the critics saying that Bitcoin is uncertain because its fiat denominated exchange rate is too volatile. Well, the only thing that's certain about fiat is that it will lose its value over time. Everything in life will get more expensive in fiat terms, and you will have to acquire more and more fiat in order to be able to live. Everything about Bitcoin is the opposite. It's certain, from the monetary policy to the supply issuance schedule to the total finite fixed supply. Yes, Bitcoin's short-term fiat-denominated exchange rate is volatile. It is a brand new form of money that's still in its infancy. It's only 16 years of existence for the world's first ever instance of decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash and true digital scarcity. The first time in history that those things have ever existed. So you have a giant wave of $1 quadrillion of fiat wealth sloshing in and out of this container that holds 21 million Bitcoin, making it look like Bitcoin's price is volatile. But zoom out. Life only gets cheaper on a Bitcoin standard. All prices historically have fallen in terms of Bitcoin. A house that once cost thousands of Bitcoin, then cost hundreds of Bitcoin, today might cost 5 Bitcoin. And someday it will cost 0.5 Bitcoin. Life has never gotten more expensive for a person who has consistently bought and held Bitcoin for 4 or more years. Let that sink in, Elon. So if that doesn't give you more certainty, then I don't know what does. But fiat doesn't just hurt your ability to plan for the future, it also distorts and destroys the value of your past. I just did a whole video on this where I did the math, but suffice it to say, if you worked hard and saved $100 in 1971, the amount of purchasing power that $100 has retained till today is $3. They're devaluing your time, energy, and your life to the tune of about 97% every 50 years. Keep it going for the next 50 years, and that $100 will have retained the full amount of purchasing power of 10 cents. And that, by the way, is essentially best case scenario. You're talking about the world's reserve currency, the best fiat money on earth, the least stinky dung dung doo doo of all the stinky piles of fiat crap there are.
That is one big pile of shit.
Imagine the billions of people around the world who live under currency regimes that are even worse than the dollar. But Bitcoin restores what money is supposed to be. You work and you save in something that can store your value into the future, something that can't be diluted. 21 million Bitcoin forever. Your share of the network is fixed, and there's nothing the government or the central bank can do about it. So you don't stack sats just to retire on Bitcoin. You do it to reclaim the value of your time and your energy. You take the value you bring to the world, and you get to store the fruits of that value in a battery that can store it forever. It's the only battery with no half-life. It doesn't leak purchasing power over time. Instead, it does the exact opposite. As the entire planet works to improve technology, productivity, innovation, and efficiency, your battery captures the fruits of that labor. Your battery gets more powerful. In practical terms, what I'm saying is your purchasing power grows as all prices fall in terms of Bitcoin, and your life gets cheaper forever. So you're not just trying to retire on Bitcoin. You're saving money to reduce the uncertainty of the future. If such a time comes where spending that money is more necessary or more valuable to you than saving it, then you spend it on goods and services that you need. That's what you do with money. Spend it or save it. But you don't sell your Bitcoin for dollars. Since dollars are just a weaker form of money, that would be a very silly thing to do. You just spend Bitcoin on things that you need. Because the other thing that's consistently going up, over time, like the purchasing power of Bitcoin, is the adoption for Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I know there's a lot of criticism that no one uses Bitcoin, so it can't be money. Well, first of all, like I told you, one of the uses of money is saving to increase optionality and reduce uncertainty of the future. So saving Bitcoin is using Bitcoin as money. But there's also the medium of exchange use, which of course today is less than that of fiat. We know that. That's obvious. But first of all, I would argue that that's partly just a function of the crappiness of dirty debasing fiat. Because if you've ever heard of something called Gresham's law, you'll understand that in a free market, especially absent the influence of legal tender laws, people will naturally save in a better form of money that stores its value over time, and they will spend the crappier, weaker form of money so that they can get rid of it before it loses some of its value. So what Gresham's law states is bad money actually crowds out the good money in terms of what you see being used for payments in the economy. And that perfectly explains what you see with Bitcoin and fiat. One of them is worse at storing value into the future, so people would rather spend it and get rid of it as opposed to the other one. You add to that the idea that governments, of course, want to protect their monopoly on currency. So they do create laws like legal tender laws to protect their precious fiat. And they'll do things like enact capital gains taxes on spending your Bitcoin to further disincentivize you from using it as a medium of exchange. And of course, they are successfully hindering Bitcoin's adoption as a medium of exchange, temporarily, of course, because they can't stop it forever. Bitcoin can be used by any person or any merchant in the world to send or receive payments for something. Bitcoin is better at storing value and it's better at sending value in a digital age. So more adoption is pretty much inevitable. And most people just don't even know that every merchant who uses Square's payment processing system can accept Bitcoin payments. That's millions of merchants across the United States. So the point is, the longer you save in Bitcoin, the more valuable the Bitcoin becomes and the more broadly accepted it becomes as a medium of exchange. So back to the idea of retiring on Bitcoin. You work, you save in Bitcoin, and then if you reach a point where the total amount of your Bitcoin that you've saved has sufficiently reduced the uncertainty of your future, where it's optional for you to work, then that's awesome. Work optionally. Travel, build something, spend time with your family or your friends, work on your hobbies or your passion projects, or just continue doing a 9-to-5 job, whatever you want. Then if the day comes where you need goods and services more than you need the future optionality of the money, then you just exchange Bitcoin for the things you need. It's very simple. But again, it's not about the fiat mindset of when can I retire on Bitcoin? How much Bitcoin do I need to be able to retire? It's about just reclaiming your time and energy. You spend your time and energy where and when you want to on things that improve your life or make you feel more alive. And Bitcoin allows you to do that in perpetuity because it is that sound economic battery that doesn't leak the value of your time and energy. So don't get caught up in the fiat mindset of how much Bitcoin do I need to retire. Before you heard that some other dude became a billionaire off Bitcoin, you probably weren't sitting around thinking, how many ounces of gold do I need? How many shares of the S&P do I need to retire? How many ETH or how many Bitcoin do I need before I can quit my job? Most likely, you just worked. You just set up an automatic 401k deduction that bought the total stock market index every 2 weeks. So just keep doing that. Treat Bitcoin like that. You acquire more fiat, you meet your basic needs, including your short-term emergency fund or whatever. Then you exchange any excess fiat for Bitcoin, and you let Bitcoin take care of the rest. Now, there's an example or a case study of a guy I found that I want to show you. There's a guy named Leo who posted this on Twitter. I don't know him, but he posted a great example of what I'm talking about. Now, here's Leo. So he says he started buying $100 worth of Bitcoin back in July. That's it. Nothing crazy. But of course, he said, well, people told him, even if it does a 10x, you're still only going to have $1,000. He's like, yeah, no shit. I know how to do math. But it's not about the 10x. It's not about the retiring. It's just about building the habit. You just stack regularly a few dollars here and a few dollars there as much as you can. And then, yeah, you might reach $1,000 of Bitcoin. And then they're going to say the same thing. Well, even if it does a 10x, you only have 10 grand. It's like, yeah, we know. Not the point. You don't stop at 1K. You just keep stacking, because with Bitcoin, what matters is building the mindset, building the low time preference, building the habit. That is what future you is going to thank you for. Because like Leo said, in 20 years, all the people who were saying $5 a day is not worth it are definitely going to wish that they had bought those $5 a day worth of Bitcoin. And when Leo first tweeted that, or when I first started writing this script, Leo's Bitcoin was probably worth more than he paid for it in dollar terms. He was probably in the green. By the time I'm recording it and this episode comes out, guess what? It's probably worth less. He's probably in the red. So does that make Leo an idiot? Does that mean he's stupid? Or does that mean that everything I've said so far is wrong? Of course not. It's quite literally the opposite. It proves my point. Now, Leo has the opportunity to get more sats for his dollars. And some sucker out there decided to give Leo and you and me a discount on their Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin that Leo's been buying since July, and hopefully you and me as well, should he freak out and worry that he bought the top and stopped buying today because he's temporarily in the red? Remember what I said about no person who's ever consistently bought and held Bitcoin has been in the red after 4 years or more? So again, you zoom out, you look at Bitcoin's history, you look at the underlying fundamentals of the network, and then you ask, Who do you think is more likely to regret it in another 4 years? Leo or you or me who bought more Bitcoin on this temporary dip, or the person on the other end who sold their Bitcoin for $80,000? I've been building my conviction for years, so I know which side of that equation is going to regret it. All right, so listen, I know I said stop worrying about doing the math and retiring on Bitcoin, but if you really want to know the math, I did do a video that you can watch right here where I walked through the actual math on dollar cost averaging different amounts of Bitcoin and that Bitcoin growing at different compound annual growth rates. You can go watch the whole video if you want to see the math, but suffice it to say that you could literally be like this lady who says she's 49 years old with zero savings and zero plan, no idea what she's going to do. But guess what? All you'd have to do is start dumping something like a couple $100, call it $300 a month into Bitcoin today. And by the standard normal expected retirement age of 65 or 67, you're going to be completely fine. So considering that 40 to 45% of Americans have no retirement savings at all, Bitcoin is literally a lifeboat. If you can't do $300 a month, do 50. If you can't do 50, drive for Uber and sell some of your crap at a yard sale. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point remains. You work, you store value in something that can't be debased. Or maybe Trump gives you a $2,000 stimmy check, and you jam that sucker into Bitcoin, and you beat the fiat money printer at its own game. So hopefully I didn't clickbait you with the title and thumbnail of this video, and you didn't come here just looking for a number of how much Bitcoin you need to retire. Hopefully you see by now that that is the wrong question. The better question is, how do I stop giving away the value of my time and start getting it back? Bitcoin isn't some magical retirement lottery. It's not a ticket to escape life. It's a tool to start living on your own terms. It's about building real freedom from a system designed to keep you enslaved forever. So stop trying to retire on Bitcoin and start living on Bitcoin. If you want to learn to stack smarter and grow your conviction in Bitcoin, you subscribe to the channel, you watch another video of mine right here. And as always, quit slacking and start stacking.